こんな堂々と家の前に置いていくなんて。
Hi there everyone, Lars back with another review and analysis for Kimi wa Meido-sama, brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And this episode really slowed things down, and rightfully so, because this dives into the heart of who Yuki, as we now have her name officially in the anime, who she is supposed to become. What is her journey? Her journey is to become a normal girl. Well, fancy that. Take a maid apron wearing assassin who has no idea what food even tastes like, and turning her into a typical rom-com Japanese girl? Yeah, good luck with that. And yet, it seems like we're off to a right start. We're off on the right foot with this particular episode. And it starts off with Hitoyoshi and Yuki discovering that there is this cute little fluffy fat dog right on the front porch. Apparently someone decided that, oh man, this isn't going to be a Pomeranian. I don't want to have a big dog. Here you go, you can have it. You look like you're a rich person. Well, first of all, did you not ask what kind of dog you were getting over at the pet store? And then here's another thing. If you, whether you're fictional or real, decide to take one of your animals and just drop it off somewhere else without properly giving it to someone else who will take care of it, or dropping it off at a shelter, you deserve to be dropped off in the middle of the woods, or better yet, in the middle of the desert with no idea where you are and no food. There you go. That's how your animal feels. And if you agree with my sentiment, type agreed into the comments. Now then, Yuki is about as heartless as the person who dropped the dog off, being like, if this dog cannot survive on its own, if it has no will to go on, it should just be allowed to die. To which Hitoyoshi is like, oh, I'm going to take care of this dog. Right after he was complaining that this dog was left on his front porch. To which Yuki's like, but this makes no sense. Why would you bring in this little pooch? It doesn't have any strength. Look at just how cute and fluffy and fat it is. It can't do anything for you. And Hitoshi's just like, look, it's a cute little dog, and it deserves to be given some love. If someone else isn't going to take care of it, then, well, why not me? Sure, I can give it over to someone else, but that's going to take some time, so I might as well do my absolute best to take care of the dog right now. And this just flies in the face of everything that Yuki has been taught throughout her entire life. Well, now that she's got to spend time with the dog, we get to see that another reason why she does not want this dog around is because she's scared of dogs. One of the lessons that she was given by one of her teachers back when she was little and first brought up to be an assassin was that she is going to have to survive. Hunger is going to drive her. The need, the will to survive against everything else. And so a bunch of hungry dogs were unleashed on her, and she had to survive an entire night being hunted by these relentless bloodhounds. She survived, obviously, which means that she was ready to go to the next level of becoming an apprentice assassin, but that experience has just made her completely sour towards dogs. She does not want to hold this poor little thing, this fried Mochi Taro. I'm just going to call him Mochi. So she doesn't want to hold Mochi, but she's like, but if you're going to order me to do so, Hitoyoshi, I will do. And he's like, look, I just need help with this. And if you don't like the dog, do not force yourself. It's okay. Again, flying in the face of everything that she's ever learned, where he's saying, look, it's okay for you to choose yourself. If you don't want to be around the dog, you don't have to be. And this has such an impact on her that even more so than being given a command to hold Mochi, she's willing to hold onto Mochi, even though he bites her, and she still, because of that, refuses to chuck him like she wants to. She then goes out shopping with Hitoyoshi to get the proper equipment in order to take care of a dog. They're going to need food, they're going to need a leash, they're going to need all of the amenities in order to keep the place nice and clean and keep the dog preoccupied and entertained. But in the process of this shopping trip, Yuki opens up to Hitoyoshi, and she's like, look, you're such a warm and amazing person, and such a simple and beautiful world, and I come from such a horrible place. Why should I even belong? I don't belong. To which Hitoyoshi says, look, if you want to be a part of this, then choose to be so. You can choose to be your own normal girl. That way you can fit in and you won't feel like you're just some blood-soaked assassin who doesn't belong. That's up to you to decide. And if you decide that, well, I'm here for you. And that, again, just completely changes who Yuki is, and she decides that she will be a normal girl. Step aside, Pinocchio. The real heroine is here.
I'm not a puppet. I'm a real boy.
人吉様、普通の子になるには何をすればいいでしょうか?
Well, when they get back to the house, Yuki wants Hitoyoshi to give her a name. Now, then, I've been calling her Yuki because that's her name, but up until this point, she's just been Mrs. Maid. And she's like, look, you named the dog so well. He's like, oh, no, I really did not name the dog well at all. And she's like, but I want you to give me a name. What should be my name? And he thinks about it. And he's like, okay, well, when were you born? She's like, well, I believe I was born during the winter, during one of the heaviest snowstorms, at least according to what I've overheard. And he says, okay, then, I'm going to name you Yuki. Well, remember this, her assassin's name is Shuei, and Shuei is snow for her being this cold, heartless, brutal, efficient murderer. And so she's like, nope, okay, I guess I'm just an assassin still. To which then Hitiyoshi's like, yeah, snow is just it's so beautiful, and it's white, and it's warm. She's like, snow isn't warm. What are you talking about? He's like, well, when you get a lot of snow that covers the fields, it takes care of the ground underneath. So that way all of the plants, especially the fresh seeds that will bloom in the spring, aren't completely frozen by the freeze of winter because the snow insulates it. So in a way, you can kind of believe that snow is warm. So I think that snow is warm. It's white and beautiful and warm, like you. And she's just like, and it just blows up and blossoms and blooms as a flower herself as she's completely overwhelmed by Hitiyoshi's kindness and his logic. And the episode ends there with Hitiyoshi's sister coming over to visit. And oh boy, a whirlwind has just arrived. Now, let me quickly talk about the adaptation for this particular episode, because there's some things that I really enjoyed, and one thing that I actually didn't. And so let's first talk about what I really liked. I liked that the pacing was slowed down for this, that we finally got some real time to just revel in some of the chapters of getting to know who Yuki is. And it made the reveal for her name, or I should say that the giving of her name, made it so much more special. Rather than try to skip through as much content as possible to fully establish who Yuki and Hitoyoshi are, such as what happened in the previous episode, we now spend time to really get into Yuki's mindset. That is important because we need that contrast between the warm, happy, naive world that Hitoyoshi lives in and the cruel, dark, blood-stained world of assassins that Yuki comes from. Because throughout this story, we're going to see that contrast again and again and again. This is one of the reasons why before, when we did the preview for this show, when Scott and I were talking about it, I said that there is definitely a lot of horror elements and supernatural elements to this show, as we will see. That all comes from Yuki's backstory, and as her world bleeds into Hitiyoshi's. And the journey that Yuki's going to go on is to become a normal girl who can fit in his life, and someone who, as we're going to see as the story goes on, someone who can fall in love with him. So that is what's being set up right here. There's a lot of great heavy lifting and a lot of setup. So this was done really, really well. And I like a lot of the background details. This is something that I did not pick up on in the manga until way later. Just how much the people of the town, of the city, are already falling for Yuki. Because you see it in the background. If you're paying attention, there's all these people blushing when they look at her. Men and women alike. There's one guy who nearly walks into a lamppost because he's looking back at Yuki. This is a great, important little detail that pays off way later on, because Yuki is just the princess that everyone wants to know more about, and everyone's so jealous of Hitoyoshi later on. So this is some good background setup if you're paying attention. Now, the one thing that I did not really like going through this episode is that when we are first introduced in this episode to some of the details of Yuki's life as an assassin, being chased by the dogs, that was played off more as a joke rather than as the real horrific thing that it was presented to us as in the manga. Granted, music definitely goes a long way in helping to establish the tone, the atmosphere for this particular scene, but it's also in the voice acting, in the delivery. This was absolutely passed off as a bit of a juxtaposition to create the humor of, wow, look at this this accomplished assassin dripping in blood being scared of a little dog. Yeah, sure, she has a reason to be scared, but hello, this is a woman who can throw knives so easily. Of course she should be able to annihilate any dog. Of course this little puffball pooch can't survive her. That is the comedy. That is the joke. However, in the manga, it hits way harder, and her accomplishment in being able to hold Mochi and later on coming to really love him as a member of the family is essential to the fact that she is horrified of dogs. She is scared of them. And in the manga, you get a little bit more of the terror that truly grips her, which then actually makes the humor of her then getting munched on by Mochi way funnier. And it becomes more heartfelt when she then refuses to chuck him and hurt him like her instincts tell her to do. And so the intensity and the beauty of that moment were lost in them trying to hit the joke earlier rather than letting the joke build up. And this is something that everyone should take to heart if you're going to try to write comedy, because comedy is all about the timing and the delivery. And comedy is hard to write. I'm just going to say that. It's a real gift for those people who can write and deliver it, because not everyone can. But most people can realize when a joke is really landing and when it doesn't. The joke lands way better and is more heartfelt in the manga than it is here in this episode. Now then, as far as writing advice that we can pull out of this episode, like why should novice authors even care about the show other than that it's absolutely gorgeous and beautiful and fun? Some advice that I would take away from this episode is this. Take your time to slow down the pacing to allow people to really get to know the characters, especially to see their relationship build. We see the relationship growing between Hitoyoshi and between Yuki. It is not rushed. Sure, we are surviving on the trope of girl from another place, a foreigner girl or a stranger girl coming and living with another guy. Obviously, we're dealing with that trope. But rather than that trope commanding where we go with the story, again, good communication between these two characters develops their relationship and develops their dynamic, and it feels way more natural despite the trope that we're working with or the contrast in worlds that these two characters come from. Again, communication is key, but we only get that communication because the story for this episode slowed down the pacing and allowed us to fully seep ourselves into this developing friendship. That is essential. So the pacing was done really, really well. If you want to fully develop characters and their relationships, you need to slow things down and let us get to know them. Another good bit of writing advice is this. Have your characters state what their intentions and goals are. Now, one of the things that I find annoying in a lot of anime, and especially in a lot of battle shonen, is that you'll have the character shout out what their goal is again and again and again and again and again. That gets really old and really boring real fast. What we will see if the adaptation follows what the manga gives us is that we will get repeats, that Yuki wants to be like a normal girl, but the thing that makes this work out is that this goal gets reiterated as a big obstacle faces Yuki in her understanding of what a normal girl should be, and more specifically, how she, as a normal girl, what she wants to be, what is her normal. And so it's good to iterate what the goals are. It's good to make those stated, but do not keep coming back to them and hammering us on over the head with it. And that is something that I once did as a writer. I'm like, of course I have to reiterate again and again and again what the goal is. And then it just makes the character come off as really preachy. Now then, I'd made the mistake in already publishing the first book where my character acted that way, and so kind of as a correction, and it could be considered an overcorrection doing this in the sequel, I then have another character come in and just be like, dude, why are you saying this? Why are you pontificating, giving us these speeches? They don't help me. They don't help you anything. Slap, 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 slap. Stop that. If you say you're going to do something, go and do it. Prove to me that you can. And it's almost kind of like a wink at the audience, like, yeah, you already know what's going on. Now let's see where this character can go. Your characters say a whole lot more by their actions than by their words. But words are important to anchor us into who these characters are, and they give us a starting point for their real informative actions. So, that is my writing advice to you based on what we see in this episode of Kimi wa Meido-sama. I hope that you've been keeping up with this particular show because it is just an absolute delight to watch. I highly recommend this to just about anyone. It is so much fun, and we are getting into the real insanity, and we are kind of setting up the springboard for the real rom-com goodness. Oh, this is going to be great. So, until the next time that we get to see Maid-sama, or now as we know her, Yuki, trying to become a real girl. If you're looking for other great videos or reviews, analyses, writing advice, and the likes, then please check out our other videos here. We would love it if you subscribed and join us on this incredible adventure that we call writing. And if you're looking for other great books to try on out, you can see some of the ones that I have published. They are linked in the description below. Otherwise, thank you so much, and until the next video, y'all, tschüss.
Yuki 素敵な名前をありがとうございます